Moto and moped-style e-bikes are fast, tons of fun, and they usually look super cool too. So whether you're looking for a way to blow off some steam on the weekends or pick up a little adrenaline rush on the way to work, this style of bike is always going to be a good time.
Our team has done extremely in-depth testing for literally hundreds of e-bikes, and we are here to share our top picks for the best moto or moped-style e-bike of 2024.
Welcome to Electric Bike Report. I'm John.
And I'm Griffin.
We've got a couple of quick items of business before we get into our picks. First off, if you're shopping for an e-bike, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We've built our reputation on giving you the most in-depth information out there, and we want to be your go-to source for the best e-bike reviews.
Second, we couldn't do this work without support from viewers like you. So if this video helps you to find a bike, please use our affiliate links in the video description when you make a purchase. We earn commissions from sales, but this does not increase your cost. And just FYI, none of the brands we'll be talking about have purchased their way onto this list. We selected these bikes because we genuinely believe they are the best out there.
Finally, let's talk a little bit about the standardized tests that we perform on every bike we review. We'll be throwing out each bike's results as we get into the list, so this background info will help to add some context. Our range test measures how far a bike can travel on a single battery charge. We're going to have a mix of data for this test, as we usually pedal bikes in their highest and lowest settings to get a minimum and maximum range, but we recently switched to throttle-only tests for moto-style e-bikes since most people aren't buying these bikes to pedal.
And in our hill test, we take every bike to a super steep hill called Hellhole Trail, which is a third of a mile long with an average grade of 12%. So it's not something you'd want to pedal up on an analog bike. The average results for this test are 1 minute and 29 seconds on throttle and 1 minute 21 seconds when it comes to pedal assist.
And finally, with our brake test, we bring every bike up to 20 miles per hour before hitting the brakes, and then we measure the distance it takes to stop completely. This style of bike usually does really well in this test, and the category average is currently 20 feet 3 inches. That covers all the ground rules though, so let's dive into our top picks for the best bikes. Our top spot goes to the full suspension version of the Ride1Up Revv 1. This bike has gone head-to-head with some of the most popular moto-style e-bikes on the market, and it came out on top 9 times out of 10.
And our data definitely backs that up, so let's run through the basics. So the Revv 1 is a Class 2 e-bike that can be unlocked to either Class 3 or an unrestricted off-road mode in its settings. It has a 750 watt rear hub motor with a cadence sensor, and with the pedal method in our range test, we measured 36 to 52 miles from a single 1040 watt hour battery, but you can add a second battery to go even farther. In our hill test, its throttle result was 1 minute and 8 seconds, while its pedal took just 1 minute flat. Its average stopping distance in the brake test was 19 feet and 2 inches, and this bike fits riders from 5'2" up to 6'4" and can hold up to 400 pounds. And finally, this version of the bike retails at $22.95.
There are a few really big reasons this bike continues to be one of our all-time favorites. First, it's just incredibly powerful and fast, especially when it's unlocked, but even in Class 2 mode, it's the only bike on this list that has a 52-volt motor and battery, which makes it feel like it's on steroids compared to a standard 48-volt system. But second, it's got a super comfortable and solid ride. The bike's weight keeps it really stable, and the full suspension just totally smooths over bumps. And finally, this bike is extremely customizable. So of course you have the different class settings and speed limits, but you can add that second battery to get tons of range, and there are also a lot of optional accessories for carrying cargo or passengers.
So you really can do just about anything with this bike. It has a high weight capacity, so it's a great choice for heavier riders. If you add the cargo rack or cage, it can definitely be used to run errands, and it's even got things like turn signals to make it really functional on the road. So we think it would be a practical commuter too. No matter what you use it for, we guarantee you'll have a great time doing it.
Next up is the Himiway C5. I mean, look at this thing. This is one of Himiway's newest e-bikes that obviously takes a lot of inspiration from dirt bikes, and it also has a lot of power to match.
All right, so let's speed through the main data points. The C5 is a Class 2 e-bike that can be unlocked to a Class 3 after reaching out to Himiway for the access code. It has a 750 watt rear hub motor with a torque sensor, and we did the throttle only method with our range test and got 30 miles from the 960 watt hour battery. It finished the throttle portion of our hill test in 1 minute and 29 seconds, and it pedaled up it in 2 minutes and 4 seconds. The bike's average stopping distance in our brake test was 19 feet and 1 inch, and it fits riders between 5'4" and 6'3" with a total payload capacity of 330 pounds. And finally, the C5's list price is just $22.99.
A few main things about the bike stood out to us. First, with its full suspension, its motor, and its custom tires, this bike is really well suited to riding off-road. The suspension in particular felt awesome, and it can really take some serious punishment before you'll even feel it. Second, we've got to give this bike some serious props just because of its design. Himiway really stepped it up with this bike, and really all of their new models, but we just love how aggressive this thing looks. But third, the C5 has lots of power to handle off-road riding, but it also has the stopping power to match. We were really happy to see that Himiway put a really big priority on performance and safety in our brake test.
This is a pretty tall e-bike, so we think it would be a good fit for taller riders. And of course, with so many features geared towards off-roading, we think this would be a great option for anyone who wants to spend a lot of time playing out in the dirt. So next up, we have the Ride1Up Revv 1. Wait, didn't we do that already?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. This time we're talking about the hardtail model. This model has a handful of different features from the FS, which we already discussed, but it doesn't trade away much in terms of the awesome ride. It is several $100s less, though.
Some of the hardtail's info will be the same as the full suspension version, but let's run through the numbers. First, it ships as a Class 2 that can be unlocked to a Class 3 or off-road mode through the settings menu. It uses a 750 watt rear hub motor with a cadence sensor. We got 33.5 and 44 miles in our range test from the 780 watt hour battery. In our hill test, it throttled up in 1 minute and 14 seconds and finished the PAS5 test in 1 minute and 9 seconds. It stopped in 22 feet 10 inches in our brake test. It fits riders from 5'2" up to 6'4" and can carry up to 350 pounds. And this version of the bike sells for $17.95.
All right, so if you saw the Revv 1 FS and thought to yourself, sweet bike, but beyond my budget, then let me say, even after the $500 in savings, the hardtail version is still one hell of a ride. The main differences are the fork, no rear shock, and a smaller battery. On paper, it might sound as though it would be less comfortable, but we still think it's as good a ride as nearly anything else. The motor is still that ultra fun 52 volt Bafang system. It peaks upwards of 1200 watts, meaning you can still burn serious rubber up to 28 miles per hour. We also liked the hardtail's handling. This has the knobby Kender Crusade tire, which actually has a bit more performance in sand and dirt. And since this model doesn't have the dual crown fork, it actually has a better turning radius too.
The hardtail has a ton of bang for the buck, so it's likely gonna be a good fit if you just wanna save a little cash. This is a really solid bike that outperforms a lot of the more expensive models out there, and it's just made by a great company with an awesome track record. The EUY bike S4 is one of the lowest priced moto-style bikes we've tested, but that doesn't mean it's lacking anything. This thing is a blast to ride, and it's pretty easy on the wallet too.
To run through the S4 specs and test results, this is an unclassified e-bike, so it actually has a 1000 watt rear hub motor and a max speed of about 31 miles per hour in both throttle and pedal assist. It uses a cadence sensor to engage the motor, and our test bike has a 960 watt hour battery that gave us 28 and 49 miles in our range test, but new bikes come with a larger 1200 watt hour battery that should go even longer. Its throttle time in our hill test was 1 minute and 40 seconds, and we finished the pedal test in 1 minute and 15 seconds. The S4 had an awesome stopping distance of just 18 feet and 11 inches, and the bike fits those from 5'7" up to 6'5" and has a total payload capacity of 400 pounds. And to wrap things up, pricing can always change, but as of right now, the S4 is going for $1,200.
So the biggest thing that stood out about this bike was just simply how fast it could be. I had it up above 30 miles an hour right out of the box. It absolutely rips, and it felt really solid and comfortable when moving that fast as well. But another thing was just the value factor. This is another bike with tons of bang for the buck. I remember being shocked by the original $1,500 price tag when I reviewed it, and then of course right now it's even lower than that. I definitely don't think you're gonna find a cooler bike at this price point, especially not one with a full suspension. And then the last highlight is the S4's level of customization. You can change a ton of things in the bike settings menu, including its speed, its throttle behavior, its motor engagement, and so much more. There's a little bit of a learning curve to the menu, but it's definitely worth diving into.
So obviously this is going to be a good choice if you're looking for a great deal, but with the full suspension, it's also a solid option for riding off-road. If you want to explore some fire roads or your commute takes you on some unpaved paths, this bike will handle those with style. And ultimately, the S4 is a great choice if you just want to tear it up and ride super fast. Electric Bike Company might be best known for their beach cruisers, but we think that the Moped-Style Model J deserved a spot on this list. This bike gives you all the basics you'd usually look for in a bike of this style, but it also has Electric Bike Company's unique spin.
Full disclosure, we haven't completed our testing of this bike yet, but it's done a great job so far. Let's run through the specs, but make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you can check out the full review when that goes live. So the Model J ships as a Class 2, but it can be unlocked to a Class 3 after you confirm your local regulations with Electric Bike Company. It has a 500-watt rear hub motor with a cadence sensor, but you can choose a torque sensor if you like. The bike comes with a single 672 watt-hour battery, but you can add up to 2 additional batteries for a maximum of 2,016 watt-hours. It fits riders from 5 foot up to 6'8", and it can hold up to a whopping 420 pounds. And then finally, the Model J starts at $1399, and that cost increases based on your customization options.
All right, so if you're unfamiliar with Electric Bike Company, then just know that they are the e-bike maker for customization. Now that includes both picking your preferred components and picking its look. So some of the parts options include either a rigid or a suspension fork, single or 7-speed gearing. You can pick from 4 different handlebar styles. There are tech packages, anti-theft packages, and just a whole lot more. And when it comes to the look, there are about 40 different color options to pick from, and if that isn't enough for you, then you can actually have them color match something that you send them. The ride quality so far has been stellar. It's by far the lightest e-bike on this list, so it doesn't feel cumbersome to move, and it feels fairly nimble when riding it around too. And then last but not least, this is about as made in the USA as an e-bike can get these days. Now some things like the frame are made and shipped overseas, but the rest is done in California. I have personally toured the facility and seen the paint shop. That's where they assemble the battery packs, they true the wheels, and just a whole lot more. And because of that level of stateside involvement, it's why they can offer industry-leading warranties of 10 years for the frame and motor with 2 years for the battery.
The base model of this bike only weighs about 53 pounds, so that's going to make it a great fit if you need to lift and transport your bike on the regular. It can also be outfitted with a ton of useful accessories, so there's a lot of utility if you want to use it for running errands, and we think the Model J is also going to be perfect for anybody who just wants some extra personality in their ride.
The Superhuman Bandit 2 is an e-bike with sneaky good value. It's got a lot of awesome standard features and some head-turning looks to boot.
The Bandit ships as a Class 2 e-bike, but it can be opened up to a top speed of 25 miles per hour with either the throttle or the pedal assist system. It has a 750 watt rear hub with a cadence sensor. We beat both of the bike's advertised range estimates in our range test. We had 49 and 70 miles with the 840 watt hour battery. Its throttle time in our hill test was 1 minute and 16 seconds, and the pedal test shaved that down to 1 minute and 13 seconds. It had an average stopping distance of 20 feet and 3 inches in our brake test. It's made for riders between 5'5" and 6'4", with a payload capacity of up to 275 pounds, and at the time of filming, the bike sells for $14.99.
And now for the big highlights. This is a bike that has rock solid ride experience. The dual crown fork and rear coil suspension add up to a cushy ride. It also rolls really well on its 4¼ inch tires, so that the weight of the bike doesn't hinder you at all, and it actually just feels really nice and planted out on the roads. We are big fans of the elongated saddle. My brother actually picked one of these up on Black Friday since my nephew wanted to ride e-bikes with him, and there is easily enough space for 2 passengers with the help of some foot pegs. And while the all-around test performance was pretty good, that 49 miles off the range test was particularly impressive. It was the best result of any moped-style e-bike that we have tested to date.
I think there are a few use cases for the Bandit. So first off, it gives you the option to bring a passenger where not many bikes of this style do, at least not without some optional accessories. But it also comes in some really bright colors that are definitely gonna stand out. So it's great if you want some extra personality, but that also makes you safer and more visible on the road. The Retrospec Valen Rev Plus is a moto-style e-bike with a pretty unique look. It is solid value for the price, and it's from an up-and-coming brand in the e-bike industry that has been consistently impressive.
Absolutely. So let's run through its basics. The Valen Rev Plus ships as a Class 2 e-bike, but it can be unlocked to a Class 3. It It has a 750 watt rear hub motor that uses a cadence sensor. The bike's 720 watt-hour battery gave us 36 miles in our range test, and that was done with just the highest level of pedal assistance. It conquered Hellhole in 1 minute and 14 seconds with its throttle, and then 1 minute and 13 seconds with pedal assist. The Valen stopped at an average of 20 feet 7 inches on the brake test. It's made for riders starting at 5 feet tall going up to 6'4", and it has a weight capacity of 350 pounds. And finally, it is currently priced at $1,700.
There were a few things that jumped out to us about the bike, so let's hit the highlights. First, it's fast out of the box with a surprisingly peppy 750 watt motor. We thought its power was really well balanced with the bike's size and weight. But second, this bike's design stood out quite a bit. We think it just looks cool, but it's also offered in a step-through version, which is not something you'll find too often with this style of bike. And finally, it's got a really comfortable ride, even without a full suspension. That saddle is nice and thick, so it helped soak up most of the bumps. And also, this is one of the easiest moped-style bikes we've tested when it comes to pedaling.
Definitely. We think this is going to be a great bike for commuting, especially at Class 3 speeds. But there are also lots of options with this bike to help you find something that works for your needs and budget. We liked this version best, but there's also a lower tier option that was great too that saves a few $100s. Okay, here's an e-bike we'd forgive you for if you thought it was a motorcycle. The QuietKat Lynx is one of the best cafe cruisers around. It's not just looks either, but it's also a blast to ride and especially comfortable for big and tall riders.
I agree. I think this might be one of the best looking e-bikes, period. Running through the main data points, the Lynx can switch between 4 riding modes. So there's Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, and unrestricted mode. It has a 1,000 watt rear hub motor with a cadence sensor. We recorded 25 and 37 miles with the massive 960 watt-hour battery in our range test. It finished the throttle test at Hellhole in 1 minute 38 seconds and pedaled up in 1 minute 30. Its average stopping distance in our brake test was 22 feet and 7 inches, which is pretty good considering that it weighs just over 100 pounds. The Lynx fits riders from 5'3" to 6'5" and has a total payload capacity of 350 pounds, and it's currently priced at $4,000.
All right. And now for the big highlights. I don't typically lead off with reasons we've picked something for its looks, but I mean, just come on, look at this thing and tell me you don't think it's awesome. This one broke the mold from what we've come to expect, and we think the eye appeal alone will attract certain buyers. Also, we were really impressed with the bike suspension. It has a ton of travel and it doesn't feel floppy or divey either. So it's just a good and comfortable ride. And thanks to a taller than average height seat, the Lynx is pretty easy to pedal, but let's be real, you're likely here for some throttle adventures.
There's honestly not a lot the Lynx can't do. It's just a great all-around bike. Of course, if you want something that's going to turn heads, this is a no-brainer, but if you want a really versatile bike for commuting or running errands, the Lynx is great too. It's also good with off-roading, and it can be outfitted with a ton of accessories for trekking and overlanding. That wraps up our picks for the best moto or moped-style e-bikes, so thanks for watching, and please give us a like if you enjoyed this video.
If you're interested in more information, we have a link in the video description to our website where you can see our individual reviews for each bike here today, and then separate links to each manufacturer's website. Please let us know if you have any questions or if you have any suggestions for other bikes that we should consider.
Again, I'm John with Electric Bike Report.
And I'm Griffin.
And these were the best moto-style e-bikes of 2024.